Hi everyone, Richard Robbins here. I have an update in terms of Montreal's numbers. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to compare the sales numbers to the active listing numbers and also the months of inventory for January of 17 to January of 18. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to compare December of 17 to January of 18 so you can see what's going on. And then I'm going to show you what is the average sale price of detached properties, condo properties, and plexes. So let's have a look at some of these numbers. If we look here, you can see this is January 18, January 17. You can see that our sales were up year over year by 15.8% or almost 16%. So we had a lot more sales, almost 2,600 opposed to 2,200. But look at active listings. You can see our listings were down. So we had 25,000 active listings January of 18, and we had 28,000 in January of 17. So that was down by 10%. So of course, if your sales are up, your listings are down, that means your months of inventory are going to shrink as well, which is giving you a much stronger market. So how do I find months of inventory? And that really determines supply and demand, right? If we have a lot of supply, low demand, prices are going to weaken. We have not a lot of supply, a lot of demand, prices are going to strengthen. The first rule of economics, supply and demand determines price. So what I did was I take the 25,000 active listings, okay, and I divide the sales into it, and that'll give us 9.7 months. So what that means, if we didn't list another house, and we continued to sell around 2,600 homes per month, it would take us that long to run out of inventory. It would take us almost 10 months. But what's really cool here, what I like a lot, in Montreal, the market is very, very good right now, probably as strong as it's been in a long time. But you can see the months of inventory dropped from 12.6 down to 9.7, which is a decrease of 23%. That's a significant decrease from January of 17 to January of 18. But let's look at this. Let's look at January of 18, December of 17. So now we're doing month to month. You can see here that our sales were off a little bit. So we did almost 2,600 in January and we did almost 2,800 in December, which means we're down by 6.9%. And our inventory was up slightly. So you see with 25,000 listings opposed to roughly 24.5, we're up by 3%. Months of inventory, as we talked about before, was 9.7, and we had 8.8 in the month of December, okay? Now, you might say, well, that means this was a stronger month. Yes. However, keep this in mind. When you're meeting with a potential seller or a potential buyer, I think it's safe to say that you can't necessarily compare a December to a January because a December is always a much different month than January is going to be. What you want to do is you want to compare January of 18 to January of 17, so you're doing a fair comparison of the same month, okay? Because as we know, real estate tends to climb in the spring in terms of number of sales. Inventory goes down a little bit because we're having more sales. Then it sort of drops off a little bit over the summer and then sort of spikes a little bit, generally speaking, in the fall, and then it starts to drop off as we get closer to the year. So let's have a look at some average sale price here. So we got single family, condo, and plex. You can see we had a 3.4% increase year, okay, month over month in January of 17 to January of 18. And we also had in condos, they went up by about $5,000, which is 2.1%, and your plexes went up by 7.6%. Now, the reason I put these numbers together, obviously we're in the coaching and training business, and our goal is to help you as a real estate sales professional do better presentations. I would suggest to you that when you look at the industry today with technology and the consumer access to information, that sometimes they think they know just as much as you. So what you got to do is you got to start to present information to them where you make information, really you turn it into an insight. So when we do months of inventory, we've taken sales and active listings. Instead of just using the information, we sort of, well, what does it all mean, okay? And then if we start to compare like January to January, you can see, well, pretty good year last year in Montreal, right? And probably it's going to continue because right now, Eastern Canada is probably the strongest market in terms of average sale price going up than almost anywhere else. Obviously, Toronto changed a little bit with the home buyer tax that went into effect April of last year. Still, obviously, a very strong market. In Vancouver, there's a lot going on in Vancouver right now that could affect prices in 2018. So anyway, I put this together hoping that you might consider doing something like this when you're meeting with a potential buyer or a potential seller. They can see what's going on. And now what you're doing is you're bringing very relevant information, I should say, that will assist them in making decisions that are in their best interest. And remember this, never tell them what you can show them. So if you can put this type of information on paper for them, I think you're going to find it more effective. And what I'm going to do is every month this year, I will do a report on all of the major markets across Canada. I'll keep updating you on this information, so hopefully you can use this in your sales presentations. Hoping this was helpful, and remember everybody, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.